thank you for accepting our invitation from Ethiopic. My name is Henok Mangistu. I am the founder of Ethiopic, and today I am joined by one of our community member, and I'm going to ask her to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Jelani. I'm a longtime Montgomery County resident. I live on the east side of the county. So yeah, I'm just a resident and community member.
Tell us about yourself. Who are you? Why are you running? And what's the reason for you to decide to become a county executive for Montgomery County?
My name is Peter. I moved here at the age of 4. I went to White Oak Junior High and Springbrook High School, so I'm familiar with the east side of the county. And I decided to run because all the issues I've addressed to the council and the county executive, I never get any kind of feedback from them. And so when I started showing up, I asked the county to turn off all the camera feeds from the traffic cameras, the license plate readers. The county police department gives away free doorbell cameras in exchange for getting video feeds. And the things like the county shares the same data center as ICE, so they're basically handing all the citizens' data on a platter, and all this. And the only council member that responded was an aide to Evan Glass and said, "Oh, don't worry, the privacy regulations protect us." But I read those regulations, and they require that this data be sent up to our secret police in Maryland Security Center in Hanover. And this is a group of intelligence agencies, private contractors, DOD, federal law enforcement, state and county law enforcement. And there is no authority by either federal officials or state officials. It's basically our modern version of the Waffen SS. They regulate themselves. And so there's 3 main issues why I'm running. One is we're seeing this takeover by what's called the Dark Enlightenment. My website is peterformoco.com. That explains a lot of what I'm talking about briefly. And the second one is that we're going to go through an economic collapse worse than we've ever seen in our lifetimes. And I'm 70 years old. And this will completely decimate our society. And we need to real quickly get ready for that and be able to feed and house people. And the third thing is something that Bernie Sanders has been going around the country warning about, basically the extinction of AI. This is a self-portrait of the beast. But I've been using AI. I have an AI robotics company here in Gaithersburg, and it's to the point where we're in dire trouble. We're already seeing major labor displacement. So I'll shut up and listen to some of your questions. Public safety has many attributes, and I basically do a lot of development. I've done some projects for the State Highway Administration and New York City as far as traffic safety, and have a lot of solutions for that. But I think one of my big concern to safety is having federal police, and I think this whole ICE thing is a dry run for Trump to be able to get people used to having federal police. Hitler had the problem of not having any federal police agency. So we've already heard from Trump that he wants to deploy U.S. troops on U.S. soil to train. And so public safety, to me, I see, a lot of candidates are talking about the same issues. And to me, I believe we're at war for our democracy. I also am very concerned about the using of this police state, like right now, the MCPS is looking at putting in AI cameras in 3 local schools. And so we're in a process of habituating our children to accept a surveillance state similar to China. So if you jaywalk in China, you don't get to ride the bus, or and so that level of safety. So just taking school safety, there's been studies that show that rather than having a Prussian-style authoritative school, Montessori schools are much safer, and as part of the curriculum, they teach peace. And if you build a prison-style school, you'll end up with people getting shanked, in the schoolyard. And so there's a lot of these processes we've allowed ourselves in response to fear to let these powers, and there's really basically a handful of billionaires that are backing this dark enlightenment that is coming to take, get rid of democracy. So these other issues in public safety, I think, need to be at the back burner, and we need to address the bigger public safety as to whether people of color are safe on our streets. A lot of people, I think, look at the county executive as somehow having the ability to create legislation. It's the duty of the council to create legislation, and it's the duty of the county executive to execute the laws faithfully. So to the extent that the county council makes the rules, I would abide by them. Got a very deep libertarian streak, and there may be a lot of activities I personally don't agree with, but I believe in a free country, people can do whatever they want to do if it doesn't harm another person. So that's my philosophy, but being able to affect, it's up to the council and to the extent, but I in my own family, I have a child that expresses herself with maybe what's not the conventional relationships, and she's free to do whatever she wants. And I figure, there's a thing in the Bible says, "Judge not that you be not judged," and Jesus, stopped the stoning of a prostitute and said, "Yet you who have not sinned, cast the first stone." So that's sort of my philosophy. To what extent, like I said, I don't have the ability to make laws, but that's sort of my take on, how I would proceed. Yes, particularly in Silver Spring, and I liken the East County as the red-headed stepchild. So access to amenities. If you go to my website, I've been proposing for several years now that instead of building these BRT buses that really don't work for most commuters, is to build e-trikes and run them on elevated guideways. And this would provide the e-trikes are considered bicycles. You could have them come to your house. You get them to drive into the guideway and read the paper while you're going anywhere in the county. And this would completely eliminate greenhouse gas emissions. 28% of greenhouse gas emissions are from transportation, and it would open up the entire county for amenities. So what particularly maybe in downtown Silver Springs. One of the things I propose is this technology. About 30% of the land area in Silver Spring and other downtown areas are used for parking. This would reduce that maybe to 5% because there would be no need for parking anymore, and that would allow for parks and open, complete streets. But the ability to bring in amenity like entertainment, restaurants, and that sort of thing it needs to be opened up. And what I plan to do is provide local currency. In '87, when there was the crash, California issued its own script. And if you go and Google the island of Guernsey money, there's a lot of times throughout history where money was issued interest-free. And right now, any builders or developers are not able to even get the money. Same with the housing starts. Multifamily housing starts were 2024 about 555 permits issued. In this past year, we saw 7 buildings issued. So that goes along with commercial real estate. Actually, commercial real estate should have gone under in 23, but the banks keep pushing it out and not making the banks write those down. So it's, I want to provide an equal opportunity for government bonds, not for allowing the landlords to get all the public funding so that they become renters, but provide public funding for operators and for home ownership. So I'm not sure how close I got to answering that question.
What was the technology that you proposed in regards to the parking space or eliminating the parking spaces?
Yeah, well, these are going out in California, Qatar, and some other places, but there's a company called Glideways. Putting one in San Jose. They're putting a 28-mile system up in Contra Costa County. But these are basically footbridges that have slight reinforcement. And my proposal is to build a hybrid system that allows these electric pods to come off of the guideway and go to your home. So the problem with transit is that it doesn't serve everyone, particularly in the up county. If you live 5 miles from a transit line, it's not really workable for you. So the idea is that we would combine it. And so on 270, I will completely fix the traffic on 270 and 495 because 1 4-foot wide lane of these guideways will carry the traffic of 5 lanes of highway. So, and the nicest feature, I believe, is that these are point-to-point on demand. So you have an e-trike delivered to your home, you get in it, you drive it down to arterials like 355, and there would be an elevated guideway. You get on there, and there's no stopping, and there's no transfers. So you can pretty much get anywhere in the county within 25 minutes or so, or even during rush hour. And me and my brother proposed this to the county several years ago, and they just blew it off. But for the cost of a purple line, we could probably build 1,000 miles of these guideways in Maryland. And the county's proposing to spend $3 billion on these BRT buses, which talking about public safety, I provided U.S. DOT crash data that showed that these double long articulating buses kills 8 times more people per passenger mile than autos, pedestrians, and 11 times as many children because the drivers can't, when they're turning corners, can't see people. So the right now, like a BRT, bus rapid transit on Maryland's 355, the cost of the right-of-way in Pike and Rose area is more than the cost of construction. So these guideways are manufactured off-site. They go up pretty much overnight. So there's no 2 years of ripped up roads, but they cost about 1/4 of the cost of a dual lane dedicated BRT system and about 1/20th the cost of a light rail system. And there's a professor at the University of Maryland in 2013 actually did a simulation study and found that these guideways are much, much more efficient as far as cost, transit times, capacities, all across the board. Because instead of waiting for a bus or a train every 15 or 20 minutes, these vehicles run on the guideways every 3 seconds. So that's what gives them the capacity. Well, I don't know about you, but we have an all-electric house, and I think in January our electric bill was close to $1,000, and it was about close to $700 last month. So I get a lot of feedback, and a lot of that is due to the data centers, but inflation in general, I think everybody looks at inflation upside down because they think the cost of food and gas and everything is going up. But what's really happening is the value of the money is dropping because we have all these economic disasters where the Federal Reserve and the banks need to issue more and more money. And there's a video down at the bottom of my website called, you can get it on YouTube, called Money is Debt, in like the second version, that explains the process, which is essentially a Ponzi scheme. The only way money gets into circulation in this country or most of the free world is it has to be borrowed in, either from a bank for individuals and businesses, or from the government borrows it from the Federal Reserve Bank. The problem is the system never produces any extra money to go into circulation to pay the interest. So over the years, just to keep the money supply level, they have to issue more and more and more debt, and until the system finally collapses. And we are going to see, it might be a month from now or a year from now, but certainly within my 4 years in office, we're going to see a total collapse on the scale of 1929. And I actually ran for Congress to try to warn people in 2008, and felt like I was Chicken Little, telling people the sky is falling. But this is something that we need to prepare for. One way we could do it is, like I said, issue an interest-free currency. This was done by King Edward that brought England from the Middle Ages into the Renaissance and the world power. It was a currency that bore no interest, and it basically, made England, the dominant world power. So there's lots of examples throughout history where what I call sound money that doesn't have this interest, because what the interest does, the bankers don't want money. They can create as much of it as they want. What they want is for a certain percent of the people to fail so that they can foreclose or repossess or, have a bankruptcy so they can get your business, your home, your car. And this is a process that continually repeats itself. And we're going to go for one heck of a ride coming up here shortly.
A follow-up question for that. So if, say, decide to create a new currency, how is that going to work out with a central bank in the Fed? Wouldn't that be illegal?
No, it's like I said, California in the 1987 crash issued a script. So private, Bitcoin is a private currency. So yeah, we issue bonds. So rather than issuing bonds, so let's say we want to provide mortgages for people that are renters. When you rent, you end up paying at least 3 times what it would cost over 30 years than if you were an owner. So rather than providing landlords bond financing, we would issue bonds they would not bear interest, but they would be denominated, say, for housing in square foot, the average price of a square foot. So it would hold its value based on that. I've issued currency for Rock Terrace School to fund a hydroponic system. I put so far 3 hydroponic systems into local schools. So, but rather than base it on the Federal Reserve, tie it to the Federal Reserve, which is always going to be worth less and less and less every year, it's the value is tied to the cost of a head of lettuce. So there becomes no inflation. That eliminates the inflation problem. So, you know, we've had a lot throughout history, a lot of currencies that are backed by some commodity. Gold is the most favored one, but because there's a limited supply of gold, that's not for the... We saw Williams Jennings Bryant, the election was over the farmers, not, you know, the industrials having access to gold. And it was the Wizard of Oz, basically, was a parable about this fight between gold and silver backing of the currency. So it's nothing new. And now we're seeing, because the whole economic system collapsing, we're seeing everybody fleeing to gold. And that's why gold is, you know, 6,000, you know, an ounce. So this is a time that very different from what most people have experienced over the lifetime. And, you know, there are solutions from, well-proven solutions through history. Oh boy, that's my bailiwick. Yes, at the age of 20, I was president of Renaissance Consulting, and my first big project was doing Intel's cost evaluation system, where I basically set up a system that would analyze all the costs of both their operating costs and their capital costs. And there's several $1 billion worth of that. Probably the biggest one is the school system's capital budget. There's an item called planning, which is $1.2 billion. I could design a city the size of New York with $1.2 billion. The industry standard for that type of construction is 8 to 10% of the total project cost. The budget the school system has for, quote, planning is, and it's very opaque, is double that. And the standard budget includes a ton of pork. So what I propose to do is to, hire local people to replace Oracle, which is one of Larry Ellison is one of the billionaires backing the takeover of our country, and Bush. And so is to develop a system to replace all these, we spent between the school system and the county probably close to $200 million on Oracle. I did a logistics system for Lytton that had 200 people over in Saudi Arabia that couldn't figure out the logistics system. And they hired us, and we did it for $2 million because I basically built a meta model of what they wanted and then wrote a program that read the meta model and generated the software. And that was in 1982. So it didn't require any software. So what I'll take is the guideway technology, the robotic, I'm going to develop robotic farming robots, the feed people, robots to build tiny homes in construction and give them, license them free to farmers and builders to get us, and then take all this technology, the software. I'm sure there's lots of jurisdictions that want to get out from under the Microsofts and the Oracles of the world and sell the technology to them. And I believe we can produce billions of dollars of revenue and actually eliminate taxes altogether and provide and direct. So saving $1 billion from the planning budget, capital planning budget for the school system will let us hire 10,000 teachers, where we can, cut class sizes in half. So where the shortages seem to lay is with the services for people, the least of us, that can't afford, we can't afford, to give. I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and basically we're feeding our kids prison food, potato bit, bites or whatever, as opposed to healthy food. So I already have a forensic accounting firm in Montgomery County that will work with us to go through all the budgets and find what I believe will account to billions of dollars worth of both corruption and waste.
Okay. Please. A follow-up question, but you can answer it briefly because we are running out of time. When you say you are going to have robots that are going to do the farming and whatnot, are you implying that it's going to replace the workforce? Or what will be the fate of the workforce?
Well, I think with the emergence of AI, I think we need to look at a different paradigm, because jobs are quickly going away.
No, not the AI, the one that you proposed about the farming and
Right now there's a very big labor shortage for farming. So by having robots that will grow table food instead of industrial farming, which most of the ag reserve is, and the farmers are hurting because they stopped China stopped buying soybean, which is one of the major crops. So we're talking, my God, I call it public robots. Rather than having billionaires and Elon Musk shoving these autonomous vehicles in the throat, and I want to provide that as a public benefit, similar to, we build roads and everybody can use the roads, providing robots that would basically produce food, which we Miss Phillips has a farm out in Germantown, and she said she gets kids, college and high school kids that come out and they spend one day or half a day in the field at 100-degree heat, and they come in and quit. So these are the type of jobs that there aren't enough workers. But being able to become, let's say, for the transit drivers, say 12% of the total cost of operating the transit system is labor. Well, I would give the transit drivers a 12% interest in that enterprise, and they can go out and do other things. But we're quickly moving into a society where jobs are disappearing. So we need to transition from being workers into becoming owners. So rather having these the K economy is quickly separating further and further the rich from the poor. And what I want to do is provide the public those things that, we're going to be, we've got these billionaires that are basically building monopolies around. That's my main motivator for getting off the couch, is that, like I said, the county is providing these video feeds. There's a company, Israeli spy company, that was not precluded from selling the technology in the U.S. They formed a company called Red Lattice over in Virginia. And it basically is a system that sends you a text message, and you don't even have to open the text, but it installs a spyware on your phone. So I want to get the county to not allow any officers to participate in the fusion center. To basically last week, Oracle's Larry Ellison, who's Trump is helping them build a media empire, wants to take he's embedded in almost every government, and he is calling for a unified data service taking all the data from Montgomery County, the state of Maryland, and feeding it to his AI. So we're quickly going into a dystopian future where AI decides, whether or not you get health care or claim is denied, or what your interest rate on the loan is. And we're already seeing United Healthcare, the company where Mangione shut the CEO, they were using AI. They're in a class action lawsuit right now because after the denied claims were reviewed, they found that the AI had a 90% error rate. And that error rate was, of course, in favor of United Healthcare, not the people. So it's those sort of, cutting off, the county has said they're not going to cooperate with ICE, but the county has at least one police investigator who also works in the FBI as a visa officer. So what do you think he's going to supply, all the information that we need to round people up? And Peter Thiel, who's the head, founded Palantir, which is what they call the kill chain over in Gaza, where the AI finds, tracks, and kills terrorists. But AI makes mistakes, so they've already killed some kids playing soccer and some aid workers. It's the same software that we use to invade Venezuela and knock out the drug boats. But ICE is using that to take all the data, every key punch on your computer, and track us all. And after they get finished with the undocumented people, they're going to start on the, quote, domestic terrorists, which are the people that are protesting about ICE. Peter Thiel is funding a large movement, the ultra-white movement in the UK right now, teaching, quote, race science. So those people believe that if you're not white or Aryan, then you're a subspecies, and that's what we need to fight. We are at war, and we need someone that realizes that and can inform the public and shut down all these operations that we're basically participating. I go to ICE protests, and I ask people, when's the last time you ordered off of Amazon? And they say, this morning. We are, I found the enemy, and it is I. So we are basically providing the fuel for the fire, and I'm going to cut off all that, at least from the county government side of things. Yes. Well, the problem is we're seeing an erosion of the county's budget because of the collapse of the economy and the pork. So, like I said, I can find at least $3 billion of savings and money that's going to these global engineering firms and other ways. Like a few years back, WSSE built a $2 million website for also with Oracle for $100 million. So rather than squeeze social services, being able to provide those services and have community daycare, or be able to provide interest-free loans to private parties that want to open daycares, and the ability, say, recovering all this parking space land will drop the price of land so that you can build a daycare. And to the extent that, this is not something that a county executive has a legislative power to enact, but I certainly will work with the legislative power, but the council to enact that, but that won't happen unless there's the money to pay for it, to pay for the services, to pay for the daycare centers. So in my mind, we're going to experience the layoff. I mean, the whole point of Doge and these dark enlightenment people is to eliminate all these government workers. And they're working hard at getting AI, like Amazon just laid off 16,000 workers, and the government is going to be applying through companies like Palantir AI to replace particularly entry-level jobs. So we're going to see a growing population of government workers that are no longer working. So it's not just childcare; it is. It's going to be everything. It's going to just being able to, have a roof over your head and food on your plate is going to be a major issue. And there's ways we've seen throughout history. Like I said, the island of Guernsey, if you look it up, there was a depression in England, and normally the island used British currency as their currency. And the townspeople went to the governor of the island. They said, our marketplace is in shambles. We need to rebuild it, but there's no money. We can't get loans from England. And the governor said, well, do you have the materials on the island? And they said, yes. And he said, do you have the labor on the island? And he said, yes. And he said, why don't we just make our own money? So they created their own notes, and they built the marketplace. They paid off those notes because they didn't bear interest, and then they did another round of issuance and built a seawall that was in need of repair. So we go, one of the reasons they assassinated Caesar is because instead of gold coins, he was issuing copper coins for the people, and the senators didn't like that too much. So there's if you look at something called tally sticks, you can Google it. King Edward was coronated, and he went to the treasury, and it was bare. And of course, the bankers wanted to loan them money at interest, and he said no. And he created a tally stick, which he took a piece of wood and broke it in half, and he paid his soldiers and the government's expenses with the tally sticks. They circulated, they bore no interest, they circulated around the community, and it brought England from the Middle Ages into the Renaissance, and that currency survived for 600 years. So there's many examples throughout history where people did it right. So I'm part Indian, so I don't really like what Andrew Jackson did to the indigenous people, but one of the things he did was he stopped the Second Bank of North America. And it's the only time in U.S. history where the federal government has had no debt. Now, his set up banking systems, and there was problems with that. But these are lessons from history that we can implement and really create prosperity overnight. Well, again, my sister has 6 tile stores, ceramic stores in the county, and in 2008 she barely survived. But many other businesses went under. I think if these local businesses are complaining now, it's going to be much worse coming up. So being able to provide interest-free financing, controlling for the restaurants, and rather than having ever-inflating food prices, growing local food. I've already talked to some of the farmers that are hurting in the Ag Reserve, and they would love to grow table food, but the cost is too high. So that's where the robotics come in. So, providing a sound money system, and if you look throughout history where these interest-free sovereign monies were issued, we always see prosperity. When you're basically limiting the supply and devaluing the cost of money, again, everybody needs to stand on their head because they're looking at everything upside down. It is not the price of these but certainly what I plan to do, if you look at my website, is I will automate a citizen-controlled urban planning and the ability to self-serve yourself as far as getting permits and getting approvals, because the technology is here now that we can speed up, all these permitting processes and compliance processes that businesses need to be able to stay in business. But we're saying, well, one of the first things to do is to shut down the ICE surveillance system, because particularly Hispanic and Latin restaurants are seeing about a 30% drop in business because people feel too fearful to go outside. And I just talked to a friend who's in the landscape industry, and he says he has no workers. Nobody will show up to work. So, that's an immediate problem, but I'd like to get people educated on how money is created, something they never teach us in school. But watch the video, it's Money is Debt Too, and you'll start to understand how we can create prosperity without relying on the federal government.
All right, thank you. I have the last question. The next question is the last question, but I since you have mentioned this having currency that's sovereign for the county, I just want to clarify that. So does the county executive has the legal mandate to utilize that kind of system? Or are you going to...
Well, the same question, do private entities have the right to issue Bitcoin? There's a professor, I don't know if he's still teaching at George Washington University, Lou Solomon, wrote a book on the legalities of local currencies. So like I said, it's already been tested in the script that California issued because they couldn't pay their bills in 1987, and they issued a currency.
So there is a system that you can operate within.
Yeah.
Okay.
What you do is you issue, if there's a problem, you just issue a bond, and the bond just doesn't bear interest. It doesn't float. The bond will be worth more and more in terms of Federal Reserve notes because the value of the Federal Reserve note will be dropping, but the bond would be issued, say, on greenhouse infrastructure. If you go over to the Netherlands and see how many greenhouses they have for feeding their population. So it rather, because you don't want to back it with a perishable item like food itself, but you can use it to build infrastructure. So you build, and I want to put in neighborhoods, just like Victory Gardens, to survive this economic downturn, is put into neighborhoods greenhouses that will feed the community, and then issue a bond to pay for that greenhouse. And as people consume the produce, they will be turning in their MoCo greens for produce. And as those greens get extinguished from circulation, then the county will issue more greens to build more greenhouses or build more public housing and that sort of thing. And it's having a solid, when Andrew Jackson got us out, brought back the power to create money by the Congress, we saw, and actually private banks were issuing money. That's what funded the whole the western expansion of the country, and there was great prosperity. So if you go throughout history, you'll see these times of prosperity that were based on sound money. Well, I got to tell you, I'm half Greek, and I love the Greek food. So go to Greek bazaars, but I travel and sample. Like I said, I've been just traveling around to all the Latin and Hispanic restaurants and just I've been having a ball of a time. I'm probably gaining a few pounds, but yeah, even Reagan said that, we're a country of immigrants, and we're better for that diversity. So while, there's a need to assimilate, there's also a need, I think, to retain a sense of pride in your heritage and actually be able to share each cultural practices and heritage, because it's what I call the mastermind effect. If you have two minds, there's a third mind that uses the benefits of both and creates a better mind. So being able to draw upon all these cultural differences and actual wisdom and different ways of looking at it. The reason I got the job at the age of 20 to run this 30-man consulting shop that I did the work for Intel for is I walked in and we started talking about the Polish Castaneda books, which went into common as a fictional story about a guy that went down to Mexico and was introduced to peyote buttons and the whole culture of mysticism in that culture. So we have lots of, our school system teaches us a very rigorous set of, ideas and cultural, but the advantage of having such a mixture of culture, there is, wisdom and different ways of looking at the world that we can't afford to lose.
All right. Thank you. That's all the question we got for you.
Okay.
If you have any parting statement, this is your chance to address the community.
Well, like I said, I'm the technology nerd, and for example, my brother was given a $250,000 check by the governor of New York because he had a simple technology that made the trains and the subways run closer together, and they implemented it on at least 3 of the train lines, and it doubled the capacity. So being able to be open, but I went to the county executive and said, I want to give away 100,000 free cars to the low-income families, because not having a car in a suburban culture is a great disadvantage. You don't have access to jobs. And I had a $3 billion international charity that was interested in backing the venture, and I was going to use the $7,500 tax credit to pay for the cars, so it wouldn't cost the county a dime. And Mark Ehrlich said no. And I said, why? He said, well, you don't have a prototype. I said, what does it matter? If you issue the PO and we don't deliver, it doesn't cost the county anything. If we do deliver, the county gets the $7,500 and the free cars. So our elected officials don't have the ability to think outside the box or adapt these opportunities that are all over us. Now, if you go out, and I cut my teeth in 20 years in Silicon Valley. Out there, if you didn't have something that disrupted an industry, nobody wanted to talk to you. In Montgomery County, if you have a technology that's going to disrupt an industry, nobody wants to talk to you. It's totally opposite. And like I said, these guideways are going in right now. The council in San Jose unanimously approved them. So we have a completely opposite cultures on the East Coast, and I want to change that to let the citizens have the benefits of all this.